Welcome into this edition of TBL News the Pod. This edition of TBL News the Pod is a special edition of TBL News the Pod. That is because this edition of TBL News the Pod is the first ever video edition of TBL News the Pod. Shall we say TBL News the Video Pod? That means if you're listening to us over there on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, etc., et al., and the like, you can head on over to TBL TV. That's tbltv.tv. And watch this episode and put a pretty face to the sultry tones that are coming through your speakers right now. Or if you're already on TBL TV at tbltv.tv and you're intimidated by the chiseled set of cheekbones that are sitting before you and intimidated by the chiseled set of abdominal muscles I promise are out of frame, you can head over to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, etc., et al., and the like, and just listen. Now, we're going to try something new on this one. I'm going to call it a fireside chat. We all remember the fireside chats from the old boy, FDR, that got us through the war. That's a cross-generational illusion we can all get behind, isn't it? Well, in this fireside chat, I'm simply going to read an article to you. That's an article that we recently posted on TBL News. That can be read at tblnews.co. We call it a TBL News feature article. This one is entitled Fire and Ice, the two-man race for MVP, ellipsis, through week 2. It's about Deshawn Munson, the reigning TBL MVP, and Chris Darrington, who's having one heck of a season thus far for the Glass City Wranglers. So, without further ado, I'm going to put on my storytelling voice, clear my throat, tune up, me, and read you Fire and Ice, the two-man race for MVP through week 2. A story about Deshawn Munson and Chris Darrington. Chris Darrington had already scored 40 on 12 of 20 from the field when he received an inbounds pass 35 feet from the basket with his team down 2 and 1.3 seconds remaining. And then he made the shot. Potawatomi rolled through their first 2 opponents, winning 128-89 on opening night over the defending champion Mavericks, and 130-96 over Rockwall. Against Shreveport, Potawatomi's star point guard, the 2022 MVP Deshawn Munson, would have what fans of his might consider to be a pedestrian stat line of 15 points, 9 assists, 6 boards, and 3 steals. Great players such as Munson often suffer criticism for performances that would send accolades to a less accomplished player. Against Rockwall, in the Fire's second outing of the young season, he broke the Potawatomi record for rebounds in a game with 22. Munson is 6'4". But it was his most recent performance against Little Rock that would vault his name back towards the top of the MVP list. 37 points, 9 assists, 19 rebounds, a steal, a block, a win. So often, when the end of a season comes, there is much conversation around whether the league's Most Valuable Player award ought to be doled out to he who is most impactful for his team on a relative or absolute scale. In the scenario wherein one compares Chris Darrington's first 4 games against Deshawn Munson's first 3, it is nearly inarguable that Darrington is more valuable in the former respect, Munson in the latter. Without Darrington, and what follows is not intended as a dig at his Wranglers teammates, but as a simple matter of fact, the Wranglers would have at least one more loss than they do. And his field goal percentage increases his team's overall field goal percentage by 4 percentage points, from 45% to 49%. That's because Darrington is shooting 59% from the floor on 17 shots a game. Combine that with his efficiency from the charity stripe, which sees him make 13 of 15 a night, and Darrington has a true shooting percentage of over 78%. That would rank him first in the NBA, if he played in the NBA. 8 percentage points higher than Nikola Jokic. The reason Darrington's shooting percentages are so critical to his comparison to Munson is because Munson is a far different player, a player for whom a different set of statistical analyses are necessary. Munson doesn't put up gaudy Kevin Durant-like numbers from the line or from behind the arc the way Darrington does, but he instead stuffs the stat sheet on a nightly basis. From game to game, Munson finds ways of contributing whatever the Fire need him to contribute in order to win that particular game. In the season opener against the defending champion Mavericks, Munson only attempted 13 shots, none of which came from three-point range, and 5 free throws, 4 of which he missed. But he doled out 9 assists and held opposing point guard Patrick Myers to 6 of 17 from the floor. For context, Myers was a 53% shooter last year. Munson followed up the excellent opening night defensive effort with an astounding 21-point, 22-rebound performance and a 130-96 win over Rockwall. Again, the 22 boards set a Potawatomi Fire record, and as mentioned earlier, Munson is 6'4". Then, in his best statistical showing of the young season, Munson dropped 37 and 19, missing a triple-double by just a single assist in the Fire's closest game to date, a 128-114 win over Little Rock. Now, no shade thrown towards Darrington's teammates, but the Fire happen to have a wildly talented roster. As we've noted in several TBL news articles, Potawatomi were the title contenders last year. Or at least title contenders last year. Finishing the regular season 18-6, good for third in the Central. Had they made no offseason maneuvers, they'd be contending again. But they did make offseason maneuvers. They signed the Defensive Player of the Year, Lyle Hexam. They signed Dalen Guy, who averaged 20 points a game for Enid last year. They signed KD Moore away from Enid too. He's currently averaging 16 points and 7.5 boards. Now, while Darrington does the majority of his damage by putting the ball in the bucket, he can be a distributor when called upon to do so. He dropped 10 dimes in a win over Kalamazoo on March 10th, and 8 in their win, also over Kalamazoo, the night before. So, any notion that he isn't a well-rounded offensive performer is unfounded. Kid can ball. When Potawatomi need Munson to get hot, like they did against the Lightning this past Sunday, Munson catches fire. When Glass City need a bucket, like a game-winning 35-foot buzzer beater, what do we find in Darrington's veins? Ice. Lots of ballers in the basketball league. We'll keep an eye on all of them for you here at TBL News, but we can't help but encourage you to keep a special eye on these two. Munson and Shawnee, Darrington and Toledo, Fire, and Ice. How was that for one take? Now, I had done a couple of takes before this, and I was thinking to myself, I think you can get it in one take. I had that one stumble that's going to keep me up at night, but that was fun. So that was the first Fireside Chat. I don't know if I'll keep that reference. I'll probably get some sort of hate mail to somebody's grandparents who didn't vote for FDR, including mine. I don't think my grandparents voted for him. But nonetheless, that's the article about Munson and Darrington. We're calling them Fire and Ice. I kind of like it. I think it's a fun comparison. There's sort of a magic bird thing going on between them, two differing styles, two very different approaches to the game. Though I will say, both Darrington and Munson take the ball to the bucket, which I just absolutely love, and something that you don't see, certainly in the NBA game very often. Both of these guys like to actually finish at the bucket. They're not running in there, throwing the ball up, just yelling and screaming for contact. They put the ball in the bucket when they're at the bucket, and I think that is worth appreciating. Darrington gets to the line a heck of a lot. But he's there very often for and ones, and I think that's pretty cool. So that definitely is a similarity between the two of them. They both really take the rock to the bucket. But Darrington, I mean, 59% on 17 shots a game, and a lot of those are threes. I don't think I mentioned it in the article, but I think he's shooting 46% from downtown. It's wild. Look, the kid's clearly off to a hot start. Maybe he cools down, or maybe this is just him. Maybe he's just that good. One way or the other, I'm pumped up about it. I hope you're pumped up about it. I can't wait to watch Potawatomi's next game. I can't wait to watch Glass City's next game. And boy, oh boy, if there's a way that these two can meet, I suppose it would be in the semifinals. If they can meet in the playoffs, that would be some show. Okay, that's it. That's your Fireside Chat for this Friday, March 17th. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody.
Reigning TBL MVP Deshawn Munson did not just shoot 79% from the field, but he had 37 points, 19 rebounds, and 8 assists to lead the Potawatomi Fire to a 128-114 win over the Little Rock Lightning on Saturday night. Talk about being dead even. The Fire and Lightning were tied at 27 after one quarter. Shots were going down with ease for both squads with fast-paced action and limited turnovers and fouls. Someone must have pressed the replicate button because both squads played exactly the same in the second quarter. After the first half, things were still tied, this time at 57 apiece. The game was only halfway through. Potawatomi's Munson already had a double-double with 17 points and 12 rebounds. In basketball, double-doubles don't come easy, but Munson makes it look easy. I guess that is what MVPs do. But even crazier, Munson is only 6'4", so his rebounding numbers are insane. He is third in the entire league, averaging 14 rebounds per game. Yes, let that sink in. Terry Maston is averaging 13.3 rebounds per game for the Fire, which is fourth in the entire league. The Fire took a 4-point lead after the third quarter, but it was still close. Purcell Washington was keeping Little Rock intact. It was a tough battle, but the Fire pulled away in the fourth quarter to stay undefeated, 128-114. The Lightning played amazing defense the entire game, with Banks and Robinson recording multiple steals until the fourth quarter hit, where they gave up a double-digit lead for the first time. It is only game number 3, but the Fire are playing like a championship team. The Fire played amazing basketball last season, but they have only gotten better this season. With additions of new players and a new coach, Potawatomi is on fire. Literally. No pun intended, though. As for the Lightning, they were striking on Saturday, but the Fire were just too much. If you are a Lightning fan, there is not much to be upset about. The Fire are a very good basketball team. Munson was unstoppable last season, but like LeBron James, things never change. If Munson keeps up this pace, he may win back-to-back MVP awards. The Fire are very lucky to have the most unstoppable player in the league who provides efficient scoring night in and night out. TJ Maston also played well for the Fire, recording 22 points. Gilo Hornbeek was right behind with 21 points. Despite the loss, the Lightning saw huge shooting performances as well. Purcell Washington had 29 points, Taylon Banks had 27 points, and Tremont Robinson had 25 points. The Fire, who are now 3-0, will receive a well-deserved break before traveling home for the first time this season. Potawatomi's home opener will be on St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, at Fire Lake Arena as the Fire hosts the Rockwell Sevens. Fire fans, are you ready for the home opener? You guys already have 3 wins under your belt, but 0 home wins. Expect a great crowd, especially on St. Paddy's Day.